Anthony Hopkins is the greatest living actor, in my opinion, and that isn't even a discussion. And he is perfect for this movie, not because there aren't other actors who could play this part, but because this story deserves the best. The people who accomplished this in real life deserved all the orders they got, all the medals. I'm usually don't really a fan of the whole knighting thing that the English do, but if there's ever somebody who deserves it, is this man. And therefore, when his story was told, he deserved the best to represent him. And Anthony Hopkins is the best. So that's amazing. That doesn't mean that the other actors in this movie aren't good. They're all really, really good. Of course, it varies a bit. Some are better than others, but overall, everybody in this movie does a great job and they treat this story with the respect that it deserves. So, the story takes place in a certain point in time, in a certain event that we all know, unfortunately, and they just tell this story. They don't insinuate anything. They don't try to draw parallels to anything. But unfortunately, while you're watching this movie and you pay a little bit attention to what goes on in the world, you can't help but see parallels. That this story, unfortunately, is still something that is happening. It would have been great if you could say this is just a story about an historic event and mankind has moved on. We haven't. And this is the sad part about this movie. The additional sad part on top of the actual story. So, yeah, this is an amazing movie. Uh, I imagine that this is somewhat what people felt like when Schindler's List came out. Or maybe I just reacted extremely to it, but this movie is absolutely heartbreaking. It is amazing to see what a few good people can accomplish, but overall, it gets you, this movie. So you should be aware of this. To get to the movie itself, it is about a few people, mainly about the character played by Anthony Hopkins. While he isn't a character, Nicholas Winton was a real person, but he is played by Anthony Hopkins, who traveled to Prague before World War II, very shortly before World War II, and he tries to save people. While there, he sees that especially children are suffering and he formulates a plan to get them out. So he works with his colleagues there, Trevor Chadwick and Doreen Warner, also real people, and they come up with a plan. And so Nicholas goes back to England to deal on this side, and they collect money, they deal with the immigration bureau, they find foster parents, and they start to get chilling out. And then World War II starts. And the last train, the ninth train, as it's called in this movie, doesn't get out anymore. And this is where one of his colleagues disappears. Now, I didn't find out if this woman actually existed or if she's a combination of characters, but that train doesn't make it out. It is not 100% revealed what happens to all the children, but I think we can all guess what happened. For some of it is confirmed what happened to them later by one of the survivors, but there's not a big mystery what happened to especially Jewish children after that point. So the story then also shows the guilt that Nicholas has, and his wife tells him to not let it get to him, like to appreciate the lives that he saved and not the ones he couldn't save. And then it's not one's man responsibility to bear all that. So he clears out all his stuff in his house, all the things that remind him, and he finds a booklet which pictures of the children of this time with articles, with documentation, everything. And he wants to hand it out somewhere. He thinks about a newspaper, a museum, and by sheer coincidence, it lands in the hand of a wealthy woman, I would assume, given the house she lives in, and her husband is a media guy. It's not really clear how much influence he has, but he gets the story to a BBC show. And this is a scene that they recreated from real life. Like, I have seen by sheer coincidence before this movie was made this scene on YouTube where he sits in a room and the hostess asks, "Are there any children here he saved?" And the entire audience stands up. This is the second time he's on the show. The first time he is on the show, he just made one of the girls he saved. A girl he earlier spoke with that she liked swimming and skiing, and he does the same. And then he goes there a second time. They tell him they found another one of their children, but in fact they found an entire audience full. And it gets you, this movie. In the end, they show the real life persons. The two I mentioned before died relatively early. Both of them made it out of Prague after the war started. One, Trevor Chadwick, joined the Royal Air Force and then died after the war, so he survived the war. The woman also made it out and she received several recognition for her work and also died after the war. But Nicholas Winston made it onto this TV show, of course. He was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II. And this is very, very astounding. He died living up to 106. So he got really old and he deserved it. If he could enjoy every single one of those years, he definitely deserved it. Yeah, this is a very moving movie. I admit that a lot of the things is because of the real life story and not because the movie is punching emotional. It is really emotional, but of course the real life story is just incredible. And as I said, the parallels to several points in history are undeniable, from the situation of the people who flee the war to the fact that the British public and politics at that point didn't really care about refugees and wanted to send them back. But yeah, this is an amazing movie. I haven't been to a sneak preview for almost the entire year. Like, I went on January 1st and then I didn't go anymore because weather and strikes and what have you. And I'm really glad I went this time to see this movie. Like, I've seen the trailer once and I know I wanted to see it. I was worried that Johnny Flynn, who plays the young Nicholas, wasn't up to the task. I was wrong. He is very much up to the task. It's always easy to look worse, quote unquote, next to Anthony Hopkins. But I think the good thing is that he didn't play next to Anthony Hopkins because he's the younger version, of course, and Anthony Hopkins is the older version. Helena Bonham Carter is also in this movie. She plays the mother of Nicholas in the versions, of course, where he is younger. She's also really, really good. She's her usually, I don't want to say weird self, but she is. Yeah, if you have seen her acting, you know what I mean. She is just what she is. She's really good. Overall, there isn't that much negative I can say about this movie. As far as I can research, it is pretty accurate, down to the BBC show they recreated. So, yeah, this is one of the best movies I've seen in years. And I admit that is down to the fact that this is based on a real story that actually happened this way, and that is just unbelievable. But I would recommend anyone watching this, and that would be one of those movies that I would show in schools. It is just like the man himself, not very flashy, and it focuses on the children, not on what he has done. And this is how he comes across in the movie, and everything I could read about him, that's how he was. He didn't care about what he did per se, he cared about the people that were saved. That was the important thing. And the important thing in this movie is the story of those people that fled war and that got stuck and that tried to get out. So, if you want to see a movie, watch this one. It's definitely better than any of those Samus Held superhero movies or what have you. If you like those, of course, nothing against that, but this is a movie that everyone should see. It is something that doesn't come along too often, and it's definitely worth watching for anyone. Two things I would like to add. First is that the daughter of Nicholas Winston requested that Anthony Hopkins played her father, which he then accepted, and also that the extras in the audience in the TV show scene was made up of the children that Nicholas Winston saved. So that is an amazing detail. Also, as far as one can research, is that the survivors appreciate this film and see it as a fitting retelling, a fitting tribute, which gives it a nice tone to it. So that it's more than a movie that is marks something in history.